Okay, well, before we start painting, I've already sketched the meerkat on here from my own reference. This is a small piece of board. I prepared it well, 3 coats of gesso and a wash over the top. If you want to know how to do that, it's on my channel, so check it out. But it's worth preparing your board well, especially working with animal fur. It's a very, very nice surface to work on. Okay, so let's get going. So before we start, I thought I'd show you my paints that I'm using. I'm going to keep it very, very simple. I'm just going to use some raw umber, some ivory black, burnt umber, and some titanium white. This is in the Griffin Alkyd fast drying oils. Okay, so listen, I'm really keeping it simple for you guys, and I'm only using really probably only going to use a little bit of the burnt umber for now, but so it's mainly raw umber, ivory, black, and white just to get going. So we can glaze over the top afterwards, but like I say, I want to keep it simple as possible for you. So here we go. Right, let's get stuck in. Going to work out roughly where the eyes are. Don't worry about all the light. You're going to put that in later on. That's the very last thing you'll do. And just creating the shape here. This is ivory black and a little bit of raw umber here. I'm going to glaze up and warm this up a little bit later on with some burnt umber and perhaps a tiny bit of orange in it as well. We'll see. I'm just getting the general shape of the eyes in here, and there's a little bit of light that comes around there, so I'll leave that so we can get the shape of the eye. Keep that there. Very dark in the top here. It's hard to see where the eye starts and where the eye begins really, but we don't worry about that. So I'm going darks first, as you can see. In fact, it's very dark. And this is all going to be in real time. So add a little bit of white into that mix in a minute. I'm just going to do the other eye first. I'm just popping a bit of white on my palette. A bit of Griffin white, here we are. Let's do this other eye as well while we're here. And I'm not going to clean this brush. I'm going to hopefully do most of it with it actually. I'm going to work as quick as I can. And I might take a little break halfway through and let it dry and come back in a few hours. But I'll let you know if I do that and when I do that. Just helps to go back in. I mean, when you prepare, helps to go back in once it's dry. I mean, if you prepare the board well, and this is already very dry here. If this was going straight onto white, I'd struggle to get rid of all the white underneath these dark colours. So it's quite good to prep a board like that with a warm colour underneath. Gives you an idea of tones as well. Yeah, let's get very difficult on my reference to see where that eye is there, but when I keep it like that, it's just to give a hint of eye there. And once later on I'll put the light in there. That's the most satisfying bit of the whole painting actually. It just suddenly comes together. Well, I've got this dark area on the brush. Sorry, this dark paint on the brush. I'm going to put in the dark areas here, just the shape of the nose. Not fussing very much. Again, this is just black and a little bit of raw umber into this. Just warmed it up a little bit, just a touch. It's got this sort of blue across here, bluey white. I'm not going to go into that, I'm going to leave that blank. Always looking at my reference here. You can't see it, it's just off the screen, but I'm keeping a close eye on it, so don't let your hand get carried away painting and having a good time. Really got to think about what you're doing. Here is the smile. I'm going to just put that in there. Now, meerkats do kind of smile. You can either make it a little bit mean by topping off there, or you can bring it up and make him really smiley. I think you're trying to have to find a happy medium so it doesn't look too cartoonish, but you want him to look friendly as well. I'm lucky enough to see meerkats in the wild a couple of times, both in the Mahadi Pan in Botswana, like this. Put the dark area for the ears as well. I'm going to put something around the edge here as well, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just going to get these dark areas first. And like I say, once this is dry, I'll go back in and do something with it. There's Mr. Cockerel in the background. Doesn't like me very much. He always attacks me for some reason. Got the traffic noise in the background. Right. There you go, that's quite nice. Right, I'm going to go into raw umber and a little bit of white and get going on top of here. Actually, it's a bit too white actually. A bit too white. There we go. Can dab it on. Now, there's no medium in this oil. It's just neat oil paint. That's all it is. Straight out of the tube. I'm kind of mixing it on the board here. Keeping a close eye on my reference again, not to get too carried away. Come in here. Now this is careful you put your finger. This is wet in wet here. See, this is blending here. Very, very subtle, very gentle. And down here as well. Keeping an eye on my reference again. And this is raw umber up here. So this is raw umber. I'm going to go burnt umber and white up here a little bit. Just going to warm it up a little bit. Smooth that edge, blend that a little bit. Okay, and when you're painting, don't get bogged down in one area too soon. Come back to stuff. Keep a towel handy to wipe that brush. I'm not cleaning it, and there's no white spirit on this at all. I'm just using the same brush. I've just wiped it there on the towel. Let's get rid of that a little bit. Wipe the brush again, just add a little white into that raw umber. Now you're going to find that the painting is going to look hideous to start with. Yeah, as you can see, it's it's looking a bit rough already, but you have to trust yourself that it's all going to come good in the end. And if it doesn't, well, go back over it, sort it out. It's all paint at the end of the day, so you can. Just use the edge of that and fill that in there. And come down this side as well. Normally I would probably put this painting on the side when I'm doing stuff like that, move it around, but I'm not going to leave it fixed into place for the camera, so shan't be doing that. Right, just going to get some burnt umber. Put that on the palette. Not squeezing out too much. These are fast drying oils, so it's a reasonably warm day today, so you'll find that they will dry reasonably quickly. You can see there's a subtle difference between these two colours. Still using a dirty brush. I've not cleaned it at all. If I was to clean that brush and come back and do this, I get a right old mess because the paint wouldn't gel very well. It'd be too thin. It would thin at the edges and become unmanageable. So do not get white spirit anywhere near your painting. If you do clean your brush, I suggest you, for fine work like this, leave it, let it dry completely, get another brush out. And I'm also going slightly darker here than my reference because I'm going to go over the top of it, and that'll create a bit of depth in the fur. There's a nose in here somewhere. You can see it's taking shape. Now, I've seen meerkats in the wild many times, and or seen lots of meerkats, but not many times, only a couple of times actually, but I've certainly seen them in zoos a lot, and I can tell you now, the zoo meerkat looks nothing like a meerkat in the wild. In fact, I was shocked to see how different they look. They are far, far skinnier, as you would expect, in the wild, and they're a different colour too. They look much, much lighter to me than the meerkats I've seen in zoos. And on adverts, of course. I shall be putting a pair of spectacles on this fella. And it comes up here. Keep an eye on your reference, keep looking at it. Make sure you don't get carried away. And, you know, you can't really make any mistakes at this stage, because you can always go over it if you're not happy with it later. It may be that you'll come back tomorrow and think, oh, hang on a minute, no, I don't like that. Well, in that case, you can go over it. Now, just keeping it simple for you. I could very, very easily add different little colours and all sorts into here, but I'm just going to keep it very, very simple so it doesn't take too long. And you can see what's going on. I don't overcomplicate the palette for you. Excuse me. Yeah, Cockerel's really going for it. Maybe he just wants me to paint him. Maybe that's it. There we go. I'll be looking. Just step back sometimes and have a better look at your work. Check it out. Don't get carried away with it. And sometimes it's good to take a break actually, and sort of every 20 minutes, half an hour, just step back and look at it, and you'll see what you've done wrong. And you will have done stuff wrong. You know, even now I've done stuff wrong here, but I will correct it later on. But you can see it's taking shape. It doesn't take too long to get something that does look like a meerkat. And you'll get to a stage where you start to put too much paint on here and it starts to become unmanageable. So either let it dry or wipe a bit off. But I'm being careful not to do that, and so far we're okay. Thank you very much. Now see this edge, there's an edge here. It's already starting to dry with these fast drying oils, and you don't want to create an edge there, because when you come to put the fur on later on, you'll get in trouble, because it kind of goes over a ridge, which is not useful. And we're using a little bit of liquid later on for that, so we don't have to worry about thin over thick and all that stuff, because liquid is classed as thick, and I'll show you that later on. In fact, it's on one of my other videos actually, so do check it out. And if you haven't already subscribed, then please do. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. There's a little bell there somewhere, so you click that, you'll get notified when I've got a new video up. And I do plan to put a lot more videos up, but I've been busy with other stuff, so I've been a bit slow of late. Maybe I'll do a penguin next. Quite fancy that. Right, so what I'm going to do, let's just cover this nose here with a bit of light on the top there. I'm probably going to get some blue on that later on actually. It does reflect the sky, a shiny nose. Just get some paint on there for now. Getting too much paint on that brush, I've just wiped it off. Here we go, a little bit of wet in wet blending there, very subtle. Very subtle. The nose comes down a bit there. the highlight of that nose in a moment. I'll leave that there for now so you can see where the nose is. In fact, I'll just put a little bit of white around there. There we go. Come around there, something like that. Up around there. Get rid of that. Just wipe that off. Get rid of that edge in the bottom. Now, there's quite a lot of oil on there, so I'll leave that for a minute. It's becoming unmanageable. Right, let's go under the bottom of the nose now. Too much oil on the paint, on the brush. See you smiling there. See, I've just drawn that down quite crudely. I've just popped that on there, and then I'll wipe the brush, and then I'll just blend it all in. Get rid of the hard edge. There we are. Simples. Cool. Right. Let's get some paint on here now. It's very bright. A bit too white, but that's all right. I can always glaze it back afterwards. Wow, thank you very much. He sure is noisy. Kind of like him though. No, he doesn't like me. Right, very, 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 very white, but this is going to be quite light around here. In fact, I might just kill that now. Darken it down with a little bit of raw umber, just a little bit in there. So it was a bit light. There we go. It's got these whiskers that come up here. This is those. I guess that's why they. Well, maybe that's why they call him a cat, because he's got whiskers, but I don't think he's a cat at all. On to the other side. Still not cleaning this brush at all. It's not changed anything on this brush. I just keep adding or wiping it. That's all on a towel, nothing else. There we go. I do wreck my brushes. I mean, look how I'm treating this. Shocking. We're going slightly darker here than the picture suggests we should, but I want to make sure I don't go too light because I want to put some highlights in. We can also glaze back and make it darker later if you want to. There we go. If you've seen my video on fur technique, you'll see how to glaze. I show you quite clearly how to glaze and push back and then highlight and then And we're going to do exactly the same process with this wee fella to make him look as real as possible, if we can. But again, don't get bogged down in too much detail, you know, trying to do everything in, you know, you've got to do it in stages. Let it dry. You know, here we are, 15, 20 minutes in, we've already got his face in. Or something that looks like a meerkat. I'm really just chucking the paint down on the board, trying to get everything in the right place. It is worth spending, you know, time to get these what we call base colours down and get everything in the right place. It will save you a lot of time later on and actually make for a better painting if you get it right early on. Spend a little time doing that, but don't rush it. Haven't done the background yet. Don't know what to do yet. It's just a sketch, so I'll probably bit of contrasting blue around here, perhaps, or I think something when this is lighter, which it will be. I don't know. Actually, blue's not particularly contrasting, but I'll have to wait and see. I want him to stand out a little bit, but yeah, well, we'll have to see on what colour I fancy. Comes up there a little bit. Okay. There we go. So that's the head in, and I carry on working down. And we'll probably speed this bit up here because it's there's not much to be gained for you watching this in real time. So we'll probably just speed this bit up here. Okay, so now I've got a slightly bigger brush, and I'm just going to just blend some of this together. I sort of want to get rid of any hard lines here. So when I come to put the fur on, I just it'll make it easier. This is all quite crude down here, quite simple, and there's no colour in here. Here I'm going to add some yellows to reflect off the ground and more detail. But this is really just a base coat. Got to get that down, and you'll need to let that dry now. I'm going to blend some of this as well, just gently. It's quite a hard edge there. There we go. You can see this is drying enough that I'm not really moving too much of the oil paint around now. I'm just getting rid of those hard edges that I don't want. Okay, so we'll leave it there to dry, and I'll come back in a few hours, and hopefully that'll be dry enough to carry on. Okay, well, this is nice and dry now. I left it overnight, so what I'm going to do is get on with the eyes. I think we'll do that now, and then I can work around it. Okay, so here we go. So now I'm just going to add some colour and highlights and lowlights and whatever. I'm not going to get bogged down with the detail yet. I'm just going to put some highlights in here and lowlights, etc, etc. And then I'm going to come in with a rigger afterwards and we'll put the detail of fur in. But we're not to that stage yet. I'm just going to add, as I say, some colour and some highlights, etc. on the edges and wherever I want it. Darken up the ears too. In fact, there's a little bit of blue around the edge. I haven't done the background yet. I'll do that a bit later. If I did it now, I'd still drag my hand in it and make a right old mess. So otherwise I might do that now actually in normal sort of studio time. This is probably the stage where I put the background in, but as I said, we won't do it quite yet for the reasons I've mentioned. Right, paying close attention now to the detail of where little bits of colour is in my reference. You can't see again, but I've got the reference here on my lap and I'm constantly looking at it to see where I can blend with my finger if I want to. Works quite well on board, this blending with your finger, but it's not so successful on canvas because it tends to buckle and bend. So this hair will come up here. So you do this all over. And again, I'm not going to, as I said earlier, said yesterday about cleaning your brush, I'm not going to clean the brush at all. I'm just going to use one colour after the next on it. So I'm not doing, oh, I need a bit of black here, I need a bit of raw umber here or whatever. I'm just, once that brush is loaded, I'm going to put that colour wherever it's needed so I don't have to keep swapping and changing. There's no point in doing that on a painting this size. And in fact, that's dry, but it's almost blending there actually, because that's what it's like when you're working on board. It's much easier to blend. It wouldn't work quite as well on canvas. Well, it wouldn't work at all well on canvas actually. You'd need to blend it with a medium liquid, which you can see on my other video. And please do like and subscribe. And indeed, if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to see me paint, then please do shout, and I'll do my best to do something about that. So I'm always looking for ideas and new inspiration. This guy here is, the meerkats that I've seen are from Mahadi Hadi Pan in Botswana. Camping on the pans is just the most amazing experience, and then you quad bike over to the where the meerkats are in the morning and the evening, and they're quite habituated to humans, so they're quite tame. And the first person out of the vehicle, one of the sentries will come and jump on your lap and jump on your head, and they'll get the best view possible. So you get this amazing experience with the meerkats. And if you want to find out about that and where you can do that, and then please do drop me a line and I'll let you know. But it's my very good friend Guy Simmons in Botswana who runs a safari company called Elephant Trails, and they are amazing. And he's a fantastic guy and a fantastic outfit. So if you want to go to Botswana camping, then he's the chap to see and do it with. And certainly I'll hopefully be going back very soon. I was going last year, but of course for various reasons it didn't happen. Now I've gone quite dark here. Don't worry about that. We can always lighten it up, which we will in a minute. This is quite dark through here. But you can see how this is coming together, and it's super fun. It's not difficult. It's just about putting the brush in the right place. So I'm oversimplifying it there a little bit, but it needn't be complicated. It's just not. I mean, as my old mate Dave Shepherd used to say to me, he said, "Look, you know, it's all there. You just got to copy it." And it's true. But let your brain do the painting and not your hand, if you know what I mean. I've mentioned that before as well. Right. A little bit dark here, but so I'm going to lighten that again in a minute. it'll get worse. I mean, it's looking worse now before it gets better. That's the way it is, unfortunately. You have to think about the big picture, quite literally. You're looking at towards the end result, and what you get in the middle may not please you very much, but the more groundwork you do now, quite likely the better result you'll get at the end. See, I'm not fussed with that at all yet. There's no point in getting bogged down in details quite yet, because I'm scuffling and messing around all over the place. So we're still at a stage where we haven't bothered putting any detail in. It's all about groundwork. And no matter really how big your canvas is, it's the same principle really applies. Now, I'm a self-taught artist who has learned from many years of making mistakes, and I still make mistakes. So, it's a learning curve for us all. But I have learned one thing, and that is not to rush. And it's definitely use your eyes. Just keep looking at your reference. Don't rush it. A lot of artists, you'll see that the work they do is amazing, and it looks like they've done it really, really quickly, but in most cases they haven't done it quickly. And in fact, it's the years of experience painting that's allowed them to do it as quick as they have done it, because they developed a lot of muscle memory with their hand, and that takes nothing but practice, and lots of it. Okay, let's come around there. There's a kind of bit of his cheek there. I think this is a young fella, actually. All right, let's lighten it up now. Put some light. Right, I'm just going with some white, some white on the end of the brush, and tiny. I'm going to just warm it up a little bit with a little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of orange. Don't know if you can see that. That's my palette. So I've got black here, burnt umber, a little bit of blue. The raw umber was there, and a little bit of orange. Okay, so on with the highlights. Doesn't matter where you start really, but as I said before, I tend to work left to right because I'm right-handed. Okay, so look, we'll speed this bit up for you, so you can see what I'm doing. I mean, there's no point in watching me do everything like this. You need to just speed it up a little bit now, and you'll see it come together with all these highlights. Okay. Okay, so there we go. That's just getting a few highlights in there. Now we can come back now with a another brush and start to put in more details as we go, more highlights. So that was just very, very quick. I don't know how long that took, maybe 10 minutes. I know we speeded it up for you, but it certainly didn't take very long. So now I'm going to come back with some highlights and put more details in with a smaller brush. So this is what you're looking at, but I'm looking at this. I'm sorry, the angle is actually a bit odd. I can't put the camera here because it's in the way. No, so anyway, this is where we are at the moment. As you can see, it's quite dark here, but we're going to put some detail on here, some highlights, and it'll all come together, create some nice depth with this rigger brush. This is a number 3. There's no detail here at all yet. I've really just sort of put the paint on with a regular small little brush. Haven't got bogged down in the detail yet. Now, you don't want to get bogged down in the detail too early, although you can see I've done the eyes here. They're quite crude. I'll have another go at them. I'm going to put a bit more lighter colour in here to give them that more cylinder look, if you like. So really there's no detail down on this yet. And the reason being is you don't want to do that too early. You get to this stage, then take a photograph of what you're doing, then reverse the image. Back in the day, I used to use a mirror, but now you can use your smartphone. Just reverse the image and your brain sees it for the very first time and you'll see all the mistakes. Now, I had noticed that this was too high and also down here wasn't right. So I've just adjusted that and this round here as well, which you can do. Now, if you put all the detail down, you'd be less likely to want to change it because you just spent so much time on it. However, that would be a mistake. You still have to change it really if you want to make it right. But it's better to do it earlier than later before you get bogged down in the detail. So anyway, let's put some background on here now, just some crude background, probably a bit of blue or something like that. And then we'll use this rigger brush to put in all the detail. So I've now gone all the way around following the fur, looking at the reference as I explained here, doing all these details all the way around the whole body. I've moved the canvas around or the board around to make it easier because I'm right-handed. And I put a bit of blue here and I'm going to show you how to paint the nose now. We're going to finish this off, add a little bit of highlight into the nose there. I'm looking forward to that. Look, it's always good fun. It's quite effective putting highlights in and that give the rest of the shape of the nose. And also this eye, the dots here, or the reflection of sunlight, I lowered because it was too high and it looked like one eye was up and one eye was down when I reversed the image. I could see that I made a mistake there. So I went all the way around, putting in light strokes like this, very fine rigger brush and to a nice flat edge. And then let it dry for about half an hour, it just went off a little bit. And I then started to put in some dark areas as well. And you can see all these dark areas here. And just took my time, and it's really good fun doing that and creating fur and some depth in there as well. Now I'm going to start to glaze this in a minute, and then I'm also going to do the highlight here. And when I say glaze, I'm just going to scupple some colour over this, make it slightly browner, and then I can start highlight again. And then we'll be done, I think. There we are, just adding a bit of highlight to the nose. And it kind of reflects all this blue that's around here. So let's just pretend it's a blue sky. And this is quite black, top of a meerkat's nose. So especially when it gets wet, it reflects the light. Also make the shape of the nostrils around there with this very simply. Oops, that's a bit too blue. Add some black into that in a minute as well. Not forgetting the other one. Just a hint of light here will give it its shape. gone too far over there, so we'll just add some black into that and we'll get rid of that. I'll have a look at that in a moment. Right, this is really very black actually. There's no black in nature, as they say, and if you make your own black up using French ultramarine and burnt umber, that would be the more professional way of doing things. But this is ivory black straight out of the tube, which works rather well. There we go. Blending that in, since this was wet, so I could go wet into wet here quite easily. There we go. I can extend that up a bit. In fact, I'm going to glaze up here as well in a minute. This is quite brown up here. I haven't done that yet. Get rid of that, it's a bit too much over there. In actual fact, I'm looking at my reference, the nostril, like a dog's nostril, comes around here like that. Pays to pay really good attention to your reference when you're doing detailed stuff like this. Don't just get carried away with it. All you got to do is copy what's on your photograph or what's on your phone. I tend to use my phone more these days actually and hold that as my reference, and I can zoom in and out on areas when I please. It seems to be a lot more convenient than using photos. Anyway, there we are. Just going to add a little bit more highlight there, and then we'll move on to glazing other parts. I don't want to go mad with that though. There we go. Okay, let's get scuppering. Keep an eye on your reference. Now this is just a bit of raw umber and burnt umber on this brush, and there is hardly any on there at all. Tiny little bit, but I'm hardly touching the board. I'm just really just scraping it over there. There's no medium on this, it's just straight out of the tube, and I've just mixed them together. And don't want to go crazy here, just very subtle, just to add it in places where you want it. Now I'm going to take the burnt umber off this and just use raw umber in a moment, and you'll see why. But I'm just adding in some areas where it's very subtle, but it's just slightly browner, and my reference in there as well. Now it's quite subtle this, you can hardly see it, but you can see there is some colour in there, and it looks like you've done it before. People will imagine that that's done in a different way, but it's so easy. We're just scuppering over the top, and then we can highlight on top of this again in a moment, and that again creates slightly more depth to the fur. A bit more over here, not too much. A bit around here as well. If you do scupple like this, make sure this has all got to be dry. You can't do it when it's wet. So just leave it overnight and it should be dry enough. Just adding a little colour into places, that's all. There. But don't go mad. Don't go mad with this. There's a little bit in there as well. Okay, I'm going to add some burnt umber, so I'm just going to wipe the brush and get some burnt umber and a little bit of black on there, just a little. Again, there's hardly any paint on this brush, hardly any. much there. Now this is quite dark around here on my reference, so, and look, watch this now. That is exactly the right colour that's on my photograph. So we put the detail in underneath, it'll create a bit of depth on the fur. We're still going to highlight this again in a minute. I'll go over it one last time. It's a bit darker in there as well. But again, you can't do this when it's wet. The paint underneath has to be dry, or you're getting a right old mess. It also adds to the shape of the head when you do this on any animal. All right, almost there. Now, okay, I'm also going to add, I'm going to come down a little bit for you here. I'm going to do exactly the same on the body where it needs it. And it needs it in here. Hopefully you can see that. And again, when we highlight that again with this rigger brush, we'll get even more depth on that fur. And you can do that as many times as you like, actually. And keep working it. So this is really, it's not 3 days work, but it's certainly taken 3 days because I've let the paint dry in between, just to make life easier. And in some way, I mean, you wouldn't be able to press, I'm pressing quite hard now, you wouldn't be able to do this if that paint was sticky underneath, you just wouldn't be able to do it. But I'm not just going for it, I'm really looking at my reference when I'm doing this, just to make sure that I'm not getting carried away, having a good time. Again, we'll highlight that again in a moment, so it'll still bring that fur alive and make it look real. Okay. So it comes up there a little bit on my reference. Don't know, let's take a jump for that. Yeah, I quite like that. Okay. Now I've gone a bit too much there, so what I'm going to do is just put my palette down and kind of wipe that just a little bit here. There we go. Again, couldn't do that if that paint was wet underneath. Just blending that in a little bit. Yeah, okay. Right, let's get on with some highlights. So a bit of burnt umber, a bit of white, and some thinners, lower the thinners. And just giving a sharp edge too. If you can see that, put it over the dark bit there. You can see it's a sharp edge there, so that's what you want. Obviously not that, but you want that. So I've turned the meerkat around a little bit here. That's a bit too thin, that paint actually. Let's mix it a little bit thicker. You don't want it to be transparent. Just get that edge on here. Start putting in more details. Pay attention to what you're doing here though. Load that brush quite a few times to get that nice sharp edge. It's practice to how much many thinners, or how much thinners I should say, to mix into the paint that's on the palette. Too much and it's too transparent, and not enough and it won't run. Keep an eye on your reference to where the fur is going and what it's doing. So we are going to do that all the way around here again, but not in places where perhaps it doesn't need it, but when you'll see where it needs it. You just look at your reference and decide where that needs to be. And you don't want it completely uniform because some hairs go off that way. For instance, they don't all go in the same direction, although most do follow a sort of direction. And in fact, some are curly, they're not straight. So carry on doing that, and I'm going to do that all the way around. Then I'll come back and see you in a second. So I've just adjusted the lights, so colour's changed a bit. So I just wanted to show you how gently, and I'm using this little finger as support. These aren't fast strokes, they are sort of measured and slow, and I'm cutting in with the edge of this rigger. Load the brush up again, get it to a nice flat point, not like that, but like that. Again, check out my other YouTube programs here, and you'll find one that shows you how to do fur. But it's all practice, really. A lot of muscle memory, for sure, and knowing how hard to push that brush against the canvas or the board. And knowing when to stop, I suppose, which is almost now, really. Yep, there we are. Put a little smidgen of highlight there on that nose. Just a little bit, very, very subtle. Well, there we are. It really is as simple as that. See what I did there? But anyway, look, it's been a lot of fun painting him. I really do enjoy painting meerkats, or any type of fur actually. It's got a little bit challenging, but very, very rewarding. So do have a go. And please do like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. I was a bit late to the YouTube party for some reason. Didn't really get going, but we are gathering momentum. Anyway, so until next time, thanks so much, and happy painting.